And welcome to Beyond the Trailer Park, Episode 3, Altruism and Maybe Some Sex. And today, of course, we have my wonderful co-host, Beth.
Hi!
And we thought, we'd let Dave come back because, people seem to like him and stuff. So, hi, Dave.
Hi, and I'm always a...
You're always what? So, today we're going to talk a little bit about altruism. So, some of you may actually say, what is altruism? Because that's kind of a big word and stuff. So, altruism is the concept of selflessness, or the principle of having concern or welfare for others. So, we all could maybe think of somebody in our lives that we think is really unselfish and a really giving person, but there's the concept of the real ultra giver and people that don't ever think about themselves and that sort of thing, and that's kind of the idea of real altruism. And as you may have seen, we don't really think that kind of exists. So, folks, what do you have to say about it?
Well, let's just say I did a little light reading today, and I went from Aristotle to Nietzsche to Hume to E.O. Wilson. Yeah, okay. That was all over.
Let us have it.
Did you say Owen Wilson?
Yes, E.O. Wilson.
Oh, Theo Wilson.
E.O.
I thought you were talking about the actor.
Oh,
Owen Wilson.
no.
Oh,
no. Yeah.
He's
no,
funny, but...
Yeah, I don't know if he's a altruistic person, but no, E.O. Wilson has said a little bit about it, and of course, it started with Comte, and yeah, I was all over the place today. I didn't realize that it touched on so many different areas.
So
what blew my mind.
So what did you get out of all of that deep reading?
Basically that altruism really doesn't exist.
Exactly.
Is what it boils down to. I mean, if you look at, especially as it does touch on morals and ethics and stuff like that. And it's just, to me, it boils down to, we do things because we are going to get some type of benefit out of it. To be a true altruist, then you get into egoism. So it's bizarre. I didn't realize it was such a, I don't know if diverse is the right word, but.
Well, I know Dave and I talked about this the other day, which is why we have this episode. So, Dave, what were your thoughts? You want to get those out?
I don't do a damn thing unless I'm going to benefit from it.
Exactly. Well,
No, one of the things that I learned just a few years ago is that it is true. There is no such thing as 100% altruism. That when you talk about altruism, you're talking about an absolute, and it's impossible. It is impossible for a creature, an animal of any kind, who has emotion, to be completely altruistic. The emotion, and in some cases fear, motivates us to act, or motivates us to not act in various situations, because what we're doing is we are either selecting the most comfortable outcome or the less comfortable outcome.
That makes sense. And I thought this through several years ago. I don't know, I got to thinking about it over a couple of days, and to me, you think of sort of one of the most ultimate altruistic acts is somebody who gives their life for someone else or other people. And so, like, maybe the cliche would be the guy who throws himself on the hand grenade. And you have to think, well, what on earth is that person getting out of it? Because, well, they're going to get blown into bits. But when you think about it, there is always something, no matter how small that is. So that person might get out of it the knowledge that they are saving people that they care about, or that they're going to be known as a hero when after they're dead, or there could be all kinds of little things that, you know, even though they're giving their life for it, they're still getting something out of it. Does that make sense?
It does. I'm not. Excuse me. I'm not. I have heard that analogy before. I'm not particularly fond of that particular one.
Okay.
And the reason I appreciate you using it, and yes, you are right on your points. But in that particular analogy, you're talking about a soldier who is trained to kill the bad guy, protect the good guy.
That's true.
And
yeah.
in many cases with that soldier, it's going to be almost instinctive. When you're talking about giving a life, though, then I agree with you. That person would be getting something from that in the seconds before death.
Well, and then to give it another scenario, think of somebody who, say there's a robbery going on and they throw themselves in front of a child or something. They're getting out of that situation. The fact that if they had not done that, they could be severely negatively impacted by that after the fact.
That's true. And in that kind of a situation, you're not talking about a mother trying to save her child.
No, I'm talking about a complete stranger.
Precisely. And yes, that complete stranger would be getting something from that, even if it is only the satisfaction that that the stranger is operating according to his own moral code.
Absolutely. And that's going to differ by degree depending on the person, but there's always, you know, something to be. So maybe that person has, you know, they don't have any attachment to the other person, they don't really care, and so they themselves maybe wouldn't feel bad for not acting, but then maybe other people in their lives would look down at them for not acting, and therefore that negative impact can still occur even if it doesn't come from themselves.
I agree with you. I'll give you an example of this, and several people who know me know this story. Back several years ago, when I was working at one of the companies in Uptown Charlotte, a friend of mine and I were outside. We were taking a break from our duties for the day, and across the street from our building was a Marriott hotel. There was a family that had just come out. They had checked out. The younger female in the group was standing there with her purse. No, she wasn't young, just younger. She was standing there with her purse. Purse snatcher runs up and grabs it. She starts screaming. I looked, you know, but I couldn't really tell what was going on. And then I see this guy running with a purse. And it was just a couple of years prior that I had seen the movie The Matrix, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the first thing that went through my mind was the same thing that was going through Trinity's mind when she's sitting there at the very beginning of the movie, and she's saying to herself, "Get up, Trinity, get up." And what went through my mind was, you got to act. And I jumped down off of the decking that we were on, and I chased that motherfucker down in the middle of the street.
Awesome.
But
and you got him?
Yeah, I got him. But even still, it's one of those situations where I was getting something from that. Mm-hmm. I was acting according to what, my moral code was.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And the added bonus is that the other person is going to be grateful to you as well. that might not have been the primary motivation, but it is there.
In my case, it was not there. This person was a
Oh,
complete
really?
stranger. I mean, yeah, and in my mind, that, in fact, even in retrospect, that wasn't really there for me. Now, I understand how it would be for some people, but it was not for me.
Okay, I guess it's because I live in Canada, and we'd probably deport you if you weren't.
Well, let me ask you this, just out of curiosity, and there's a reason why. Obviously, you didn't do it out of guilt, but did you feel obligated, or was it? Did you felt it was your duty as a male, or any type of reward, or did you
No,
just
there, there
there,
was no, there was no tangible or intangible reward for me at all, except, the reminder that, here I did something that resulted in a positive outcome that was good, and you know, I protected the good people and I killed the bad people.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, the reason one of the articles I kind of scanned it. It goes, altruism is in one aspect is sorry. Let me try again. Altruism is one aspect of what social psychologists refer to as pro-social behavior. Pro-social behavior refers to any action that benefits other people, no matter what the motive or how the giver benefits from the action. And it goes, remember that pure altruism involves true selflessness. While all altruistic acts are pro-social, not all pro-social behaviors are completely altruistic. And that's
That
why
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
That makes
yeah,
a lot of sense.
yeah, and that's one of the things. Like when I first started when I was kind of refreshing my memory, so to speak, that kind of struck me because it is a good way to explain it. So that's why I was asking you that.
Yeah, I was not familiar with the phrase, with the word pro-social, but I like that word. I think that says it much better and leads
Hmm.
to less confusion when we're talking about the theme itself.
Mhm.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, of course, the other angle that we get this kind of thrown at us throughout life is that, religious people are more altruistic, which, of course, I think we would all call bullshit on.
I agree with that.
Yeah, in fact, I personally, and I'm sure you guys have all heard this to some degree, where somebody throws out, I am a God-fearing person as a way of proving their moral superiority in a conversation, or you hear it a lot when people are, say, running for political office, or even like looking for a job. You'll be, oh, I'm a God-fearing person, and to me, that has the opposite reaction. If you feel the need to point that out to me, I am automatically suspecting you now.
Well, the whole concept of the quote golden rule, which is what in a sense this would fall under,
Hmm.
all religions, and I use that term very loosely, have some type of golden rule: do unto others as you would want others to do unto you. And even coming from a secular standpoint, that's just I don't like using this word because it's probably incorrect, but that's just part of who we are as Homo sapien. You
Yeah.
know, although I mean, and Dave's more apt to speak on this than I am. There are other animals that do show altruism, but where we differ is, at least in the way I look at it or the way I understand it, is that we have the altruistic actions, but we also have the emotional aspect of compassion.
I agree with that. You had sent me the article asking if that was the one that I was referring to earlier today.
Mhm.
And I'll be honest, have I have not had a
Mhm.
chance to read that. I don't think that that was the article that I was referring to. The one that I was looking at was actually basically just a PDF file, and it had illustrations of 10 different moral actions.
Okay,
And
I knew it was moral actions, and it had to do with. That's why it just caught my eye, so I sent it to you. I mean, we do like
yeah,
you brought up the bonobo.
exactly. And
You know,
that was the last one. And I'm pretty sure that somebody actually sent that to me, but I have no idea where I downloaded it.
Well, one that I've heard is elephants, actually.
oh yeah,
You know, like if a mother elephant is killed, the rest of the herd will protect the young one, and they've been stories of them pulling baby elephants out of rivers or mud holes and things like that. But then when you think about it, that is self-serving as well, because they want that baby to help perpetuate the species.
yeah. Well, that goes into some of the theories where they talk about different reasons for it. There's the kin selection, which is basically that animals and humans are more altruistic towards those close kin than they are to distant kin, and basically that's to perpetuate the genetics.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a vested interest. Obviously, you know, people are likely to suffer if they're friends or allies. You know, similar social grouping. So, like, for me, an example would be I'm very, well, besides my friends, I'm fierce in defending them, but I have a passion for LGBT issues because, you know, so yeah, I mean, if there's some interest or some social group that we're interested in, we're going to have a vested interest in being altruistic towards that group.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
then there's,
and we also.
go ahead,
Sorry,
Dave.
go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and the third one is they call it reciprocal altruism. And that's where we expect, in either a direct or indirect way, um, I can't say this word. Recipro.
Reciprocity.
Yes,
Thank you.
that's it.
Sorry, it has too many S's in it. When you're missing a front tooth, it doesn't work.
See, there was a
But,
reason you brought me on the show tonight.
yeah, so yeah, pronounce words I can't. And this is where the direct reciprocity, got it out that time, gets into the whole thing of game theory, which is totally over my head, so I'm not even going to touch on it. And then there's indirect. So it's just, there's different, I say, layers of, you know, altruism. So, and this is where it gets into, well, you can have it based in evolutionary theory, you can have it based in social theory, you can have it based in strictly biology. And one of the things, when I was reading through this stuff, it really, every different, you know, philosophy touches on it, different sciences touch on it, and that's why it makes it such a broad topic.
Well, and to bring it back to religion a little bit, personally, I think that makes it less altruistic. Well, I mean, we don't believe it is at all, but I mean, it's less selfless because your motivation is basically kissing your God's ass,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's why I had a guy on my Facebook this week, this Muslim fellow, who kept going on and on and on about how Islam made people be good to poor people, and he was, oh yeah, he was saying,
That's a damn lie.
I know. You should go read it later, Dave. I mean, this guy was all over like 3 or 4 of my posts, and I finally told him to take a hike because he just wasn't listening to anything I said. But he kept saying that, you know, the Quran had the concept of, and Paul's gonna kill me, I can't remember the actual term for it, but that you are compelled by Allah to give to the poor. And I'm like,
then why don't they?
Exactly. Well, he was trying to tell me that they all do, but I'm like, yeah, tell me another one. But it just strikes me as, well, that doesn't make you an altruistic person. That makes you a giant ass kisser. You know.
Are you thinking of the word Ithar or Aether?
It might be. It might,
Okay.
and I know Paul's listening to you. Sorry, I forgot.
Well, and this is according to Wikipedia. They actually
Okay.
have a pretty good article out on altruism. So it
Mhm.
says this is similar to the notion of chivalry,
Yes.
but unlike that European concept in Isar, I think is how it's pronounced,
That might.
attention is focused on everything in existence.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, he was trying to tell me that because of Sharia law, that their Islamic countries are so much better and all of that shit. And of course, you know what I had to say about
If
that.
that were true, their crime rates would be lower than they are everywhere else, and they're not. They are either the same or higher.
That's right. In
Mm-hmm.
fact,
What makes a difference? What makes a difference in the crime rate is how much the population can participate in the economy, and
hmm
whether or not the population can either take care of themselves or have some social safety net. It's got nothing to do with religion. Nothing.
exactly. Exactly. And yeah, I finally told him to get lost when I said find some evidence beside the Quran, and he said that's all I have is the Quran, and I was like, bye. But that
Well,
hmm yeah.
well, I was going to say, going back to whether what Dave was saying was that within altruism, they say it's altruism versus parochialism. So,
hmm
which is hostility towards individuals not of one's own ethnic, racial, or other group.
Okay.
And we have a tendency to do that. You
Well,
know,
naturally, we want to promote our own genetic line our than our neighbor's genetic line.
hmm
Uh, Certainly, we want to promote our neighbor's genetic line over the genetic line from somebody in Kazakhstan.
hmm
So yeah, the closer you are, the more pro-social your behavior is going to be.
right,
Or the closer you're related, the more pro-social your behavior will be.
right.
Yeah, that makes sense. Absolutely. But it always makes me laugh when people try to say, well, churches give to the poor more than everybody else, and that's where the true altruism is. I'm like, no, that's backwards.
Well, no, especially when you consider that their reward, so to speak, is everlasting life in heaven.
Yeah.
So, I mean, to me, anything that somebody of faith does and says they're doing it because they're faith are not being altruistic.
No, no, not at all. In fact, when you think about it, so I'm a Christian, and I'm gonna give you, 20 bucks to go get some food. And for doing that, I think I'm going to get everlasting life in heaven. Like, that's just a little skewed.
Yeah.
Here's 20 bucks. I get eternity. Woo.
Yeah, that's not, that is absolutely not altruism
Not at
uh,
all.
in the altruistic sense.
No.
And especially if you're doing it for some sort of a concrete reward,
hmm
rather than a realization that, you know what, I think I just did something positive.
Yeah. And I mean,
Because let's be honest, when Christians talk about going to heaven, heaven is a tangible reward,
Mhm.
according to Christianity.
yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. And whenever I get confronted with that kind of shit, I'm like, really? I help people because I like people. And yes, I'm getting something out of that. I'm getting out of it, feeling good because I'm doing something good, but also making human connections with people. I can put myself out there and say, I can, hey, you're having a shitty time. I want to help you. And part of that is because I like people, and I like to see people happy.
Mm-hmm.
So you being happy makes me happy, and so it's kind of a symbiosis, I guess.
I want you to hold on to that thought because we're going to come back to that in a minute when we talk about
Okay.
sex.
Ooh, you know they were waiting for that.
But uh, your motivation for that does not work for me though,
Right.
because I don't like people. I can't stand people. Person is okay. People suck.
Well, okay. I didn't mean
No,
in large
I know.
terms.
I get what you're saying. I get what you're
Yeah.
saying.
I mean, I was at Walmart last night and I wanted to run over some people with my shopping cart, but that's not allowed. So
Why not?
Especially in Canada.
yeah,
You're
especially.
also nice up there. You get this. Last time I was, well, not the last time I was in Canada. In '95, I was up there in July, and I am accustomed to a different treatment of homeless people down here in the States than is apparently present in Canada. And I didn't realize that the difference was so vast. Um, but we were staying in this hotel on Bloor Street,
Oh yeah, you were in Toronto.
and there was a guy that was sleeping, uh, obviously homeless. He was sleeping in the canopy, and nobody was doing anything. And down here in America, it's one of those things where you mention it to somebody and something gets, or actually you wouldn't have to mention it at all. The hotel staff would have just gone ahead and done something about it.
Right.
Probably. But nobody was doing anything, and I walked to the front desk clerk and I said something about it. I didn't know if anybody had noticed,
Right.
because I was expecting the same kind of
Mhm.
action, and he just just fell all over himself, apologizing to me for this homeless person. Hold on, dude. I was just letting you know it's not a problem.
Mhm.
But granted, that has nothing to do with altruism.
Well, not exactly, but yeah.
Somebody said something about Canada, so I just.
There's been a few somethings about Canada. Hello, people. I just like to say that I am sitting on a sofa. Thank you.
Well, I call mine a sofa too, so.
There you go. Well, I tried Chesterfield, but then that got mixed up with cigarettes, and that just didn't work. So, you people know who you are.
I'm glad I wasn't a part of the conversation.
Yeah, just go back and read the group later. And now my timeline as well. But yeah, there are differences in culture in that way too, and even towards altruism. What could be seen as being a somewhat selfless act in one situation in one culture is actually not in another as well. So it does kind of speak to it. And
Well,
yeah, what's that?
I said that's true.
Mm. And I mean, like here, what you're saying about homeless people, we have, at a bank where they have the ATMs, they're usually glassed in, and it's like a vestibule into the bank, and you get people sleeping in there all the time. And you go in, you get your money, and you leave, and unless they look like they're threatening or something. But most of the time, they're just sleeping. So we just kind of like, oh well, sorry, buddy. At least you have somewhere warm-ish to sleep, and then you go about your business, and you're off. I personally have never even considered trying to get rid of one because none of them that I've ever encountered seemed threatening or dangerous. So.
Yeah. I guess.
Come to think of it, I don't think I've ever seen a threatening homeless person either.
Yeah.
But
sorry, I was going to say, going back to what you were saying about the cultural differences.
Yes, please.
Chris asked in chat, he goes, I might have or I'm assuming he meant it. It might have something to do with perception of people who need help, with the American dream that everyone can make it influences.
Oh, that's a very good point. That's a very good point. Because, I mean, from a Canadian perspective, I see it as if, in the U.S., if you aren't making a good living and being able to take care of yourself, there's something wrong with you. That's the impression that I get from U.S. culture. And we don't tend to see that. Like, it happens up here, but for us, it's usually, wow, what happened to you that you were in that situation, and what can we do to make it better?
Yeah. Well, I think in some of my skimming readings today, a lot of the conversations, I won't say kind of de-evolved into the whole idea of materialism, which we all know, for those of us that live in the States, is kind of a big issue for a lot of people. Which, I mean, I think for me, because I am on a very limited income, I don't covet material things. I have what I need, and that's that. And if I don't have the money to get something I want, then I don't get it. And I think that when I see people that are who are struggling worse than I am, I'm the first one that I try to help where I can. So I think, yeah, culture does influence. I think our upbringing as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think that has a lot to do with it too. Last night, in preparation for the show, the three of us were talking, and I mentioned the WalMarts.
Mm-hmm.
And what you have is a situation. What you have at those two let me back up here. I have two WalMarts within 15 minutes of my house, and the prices at the different WalMarts for different items vary considerably. At the one closest to me, down the road we have some poor areas of Charlotte, and grocery prices are higher at that Walmart than they are. Grocery prices are higher there, but home goods and recreational items are priced lower because those really don't sell all that well in this area. Yet you go to the other Walmart over in Denver, and prices on recreational goods and home goods, stuff like that, are higher, but the grocery prices are lower because people there tend to go to better grocery stores than Walmart to get their stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But
right.
what you have there is a situation where Walmart knows what's going to sell, so they're going to mark it up, and you wind up with people who are pretty much struggling. Well, I'm not going to say struggling, but it's a strain on them to make it week to week, and it's not necessarily their fault.
Mm-hmm.
It's just because they're having to pay higher prices. Everybody
right.
has to. Everybody in North Carolina has to have car insurance.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're going to get hit with premium increases if you live or work in a city,
right?
Or if you drive a certain number of miles. Naturally, your driving record plays a part in it. But what happens is your poorer areas always have the most expensive prices on the absolute necessities. So it actually keeps people in the hole.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And we were talking last night, of course, here, that just doesn't happen. And I totally outdid Dave. I have 6 Walmarts within 10 minutes of where I live. And I will regularly, if I'm looking for a specific thing and they're out of it, I can make the circuit, and I've shopped at all of them. And there is no differences like that here. And I don't know if that's regulatory or not, but it just doesn't happen that way here.
Yeah. I have one Walmart, and it's 30-minute drive away.
Wow.
But
I wish that were true for me.
Yeah, but the problem like we have here is we used to have 2 grocery stores in town, and one eventually closed, and the other one is still open. And it's family owned, local family. Within 24 hours of that store closing, they raised their prices. I think it was about 13%. Now, 30 minutes away, we had another grocery store. It was Shop and Save. There was also a Buy Low, and then eventually the Walmart became a super Walmart. So everybody would go up there. Well, Shop and Save eventually closed after 2 years. I don't know why. Buy Low eventually closed and became a Giant Eagle, which is now also closed. Didn't last. So we have a Save-A-Lot, which is like Aldi's, and we have Super Walmart as, quote, competitors. Within a day of the the Shop and Save closing, the local grocery store raised their prices 33%.
Wow.
The reason being, people, well, why don't we just drive to St. Mary's to go shopping at Walmart? Well, the problem is the population where I live is, I think the average age is about 58. We have a lot of seniors who, some of whom that I know have never even left Emporium, ever.
Wow.
Okay, so the only place they can shop is the local store. And they know they are price gouging. And they know people will buy because they have no choice. And, you know, instead of being altruistic, they chose to go the opposite direction.
Yeah, that whole, you know, drive for more profit gets kind of out of control, I think.
Yeah. And it's sad because, you know, I don't know what the religious beliefs are of the family. I'm going to assume that it's family owned, so there's like 2 brothers and some of the kids are involved. I'm going to say, tend towards the Christian worldview. And to me, it's like, it's asinine because I can go there and I get food stamps. I get the full allotment, which is $194 is what I'm allowed for the month. I can go to our local store and I'm lucky if I can get food for 10 days. I go up to the Save-A-Lot, which I don't shop at Walmart unless I absolutely have to. I go to Save-A-Lot and I can get food for the whole month.
On $194?
Mhm.
Wow.
That's impressive.
I'm very frugal. and that's including 2 liters a day of soda.
Well, she's also trained as a chef, so she probably knows better ways of making things and substituting and such.
Yeah. But to me...
Don't cough in the crock pot.
Yeah, sorry. I couldn't get to the mute button fast enough. But yeah, to me, it's like, are people that uncompassionate to their fellow man, knowing that there's people in this town that are struggling worse than I am? And that just, it kind of blows my mind, especially when you look at it from a cultural aspect or a sociological.
Here's an idea, and I was just thinking about this while you were talking about the problems with that grocery store. Maybe somebody should opt to get a community, do a community grocery run.
Thankfully, there are people like my boss takes me up to the Save-A-Lot, and like I have another friend that took me up this past week. But there are people that will do that, which is cool. It's just that there's not enough. And then what comes into play too is loyalty. Loyalty to the town. They feel that we're taking money out of the community, and it gets a little weird. This town's kind of weird, which But you would think, I mean, if I had a car, if I drove, which I don't, that's something I would do. When I lived in Buffalo, I actually had a business where I did that for seniors. I mean, I did it for everybody, but I charged one price for, I'll say, able-bodied folk who, were making a decent living. But, like, I had disabled customers and clients and also senior customers where I basically charged them for the gas, and that was about it. Just because, I felt it was important that these people got their food.
Exactly. That's very pro-social behavior.
Well,
Yeah.
there was a situation here locally in one of the small towns where they only had one grocery store and it burnt down. And
Oh, no.
I'm trying to think if it was arson or not, but I think it might have even been arson. But again, that town had a lot of seniors, and so there was a community organization drive to get carpooling to get the seniors to the next town so that they could, buy groceries, because there's nothing.
Yeah.
Like, they probably had the corner store at the gas station where they could buy milk or something, and that'd be about it.
Yeah.
Sodas and Cheetos.
Yep. Yeah.
But
Oh,
when I was, I don't remember exactly what it was, but when I was, doing some reading today, it was like one of the things that kills me is that we as a society as a whole, whether secular or not, we have ways of being pro-social and being altruistic, but yet we don't. And in some ways, I wonder if that's where the selfishness comes in. How we're saying that you can't really truly be altruistic.
well, the thing that I want to point out, though, is that being selfish is not necessarily a bad thing.
True.
In fact, in some ways, we are bad at being selfish when we need to be selfish.
Mm-hmm.
Like, people who don't take care of themselves, and that because they feel for whatever reason that their duty in life is to take care of other people, be it family or whatever, and they neglect themselves, and then next thing you know, they're suffering mentally and physically, and it kind of gets you into a vicious circle, because if you're not taking care of you, you're not going to be able to help anybody else really either eventually. And I think a lot of people get sucked into that kind of cycle because they believe that thinking about taking care of themselves or being selfish in any way is inherently bad, and I completely disagree with that.
Well, that's the whole basis behind codependent behavior, and I've been a victim of it. Even like, two of my previous relationships, I got sucked into. Basically, I was walking on eggshells because I was trying to be, maybe not necessarily altruistic, but I was trying to be, compassionate and taken into consideration, and it eventually, literally, drove me into the ground financially. And I'm still trying to recover. That's,
Yeah.
But, I finally said, 3-4 years ago that's it. I'm doing shit for myself and myself only.
Yeah.
And I've been having fun ever since, and I haven't dated anybody since then either. So I can understand Dave's I hate people.
Well, I'm not necessarily sure that I would use the word hate there. There are a few people that I do hate. But in general, I just don't like people as a group.
Yeah.
Especially atheists. Those guys are nuts.
Well, we are. I was having some nutty conversations with some earlier today that will attest to that. So, yeah. But, it bugs me that people get that idea that they're not allowed to be selfish, or that it's, and again, a lot of that comes back to fucking religion, because they're taught that if you think of yourself in any way over whatever god you're kissing up to, then you're fucked and you're going to go to hell, or whatever nasty reward your particular god has for you. And it gets so ingrained into people, and you know, it kind of creates a false scenario where you pretend like you're doing good because you want to, but really you're doing it because you feel like you're going to get, you know, tortured for eternity, and you can't ever think of yourself because that's going to get you fucked up too, and it's all kind of fake in a way, if that makes any sense.
Well, it does to me.
Okay.
Well, we were talking last night. You brought up Mother Teresa.
There we go. There's the one I wanted to get to.
I just happened to pull up in there one of the articles I read, and there was a picture of her. That's what made me think of it.
And she's kind of the poster woman for altruism. Like, if you explain to somebody what altruism is that maybe didn't know ahead of time, I bet you anything they're going to say, oh, like Mother Teresa. And that's so not true. Like, where to start? Oh my God. Well, and folks listening or watching, you may have, Christopher Hitchens did a really good piece on that.
Yes.
I believe it was called The Missionary Position, which we can talk about later, but yeah, he totally got into what made her tick and what she was actually doing opposed to what she led people to believe she was doing. And it is almost the complete opposite of what most people think of her.
Yeah.
And it's
Damn right.
It's pretty disgusting, actually.
Yeah.
Yep. I completely agree with that. Now, I'll admit that if you've actually read Hitchens' piece, then you know more about the specifics of it than I do, because I have never read it.
I've read some papers based on it. I've not read the whole thing of his, but I've read several things based on it. And I actually even read a piece written by an Indian fellow who lived in Calcutta and did research over there, and just had he's written and I apologize, I can't remember his name at all at this moment, but he had a real hate on for her. And I mean, this was his country, his people, and he followed her around and watched, what was happening. And for instance, so the one thing that sticks out in my mind is they had an ambulance service. Whatever her, do you guys remember what her convent name was? I can't remember.
Missions of Charity.
Missions of Charity. I wanted to say Sisters of Charity, but no, Missions of Charity. So Missions of Charity advertised that they would provide ambulance service to bring a sick or dying person to one of their facilities. And so the idea was that if you were severely poor and you had a loved one who was dying, you could call for this ambulance and they would come and collect your loved one. And the Indian fellow who did the research found that they never really did that. In fact, these ambulances were being used as transport for the nuns to get where they needed to go. And yet it was advertised far and wide in India that, just call the Missions of Charity and we have this ambulance service. And it was total bullshit. And yet they were getting money for that. Now, I can't remember if it was a government subsidy or just plain donations or what, but there was a fund for this to maintain these ambulances, and they were basically being used as glorified nun buses. Just...
Wow.
Ugh. Yeah.
I've never heard that.
Yeah, that was just... I'm going to have to see if I can find the article later, but this was quite a while ago I read this. But, I mean, this Indian guy, I think he was more disgusted than Hitchens, actually, which makes sense because it was his people. But, I mean, there were stories where, again, you're supposed to be able to call And so apparently it was common for the incredibly poor to be just found lying in a gutter dying in Calcutta. And the idea was that if you were a compassionate bystander, you could call the organization to come and get this person and give them solace. And half the time they wanted money from whoever was calling. So if you were a compassionate bystander and you saw some poor person that is obviously in dire straits and you call, they would want money from you to come and get this person. And so half the time, like, you know, especially in that area of India, the person calling is probably not anymore, you know, they're going to be dirt poor too. They don't have money to give for something like that. And it was just...
Well, and the sad thing about the hospitals these people were taken to, basically it was a mat on the floor with a blanket, and that's it.
Right.
Well, not only that, Mother Teresa also believed that pain was purification.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, you know, there were a lot of cases where patients were denied medication, including medication that could have saved their lives, even though the woman was sitting on a $50 million endowment, specifically for missions of charity.
Yeah. Well, I had touched on this before when we in our first show when I was talking about Johnny Erickson Tada's reaction to Brittany Maynard and her choice for death with dignity. And one of the things, like you said, is she glorified suffering. And basically, she viewed suffering, she made no distinction between avoidable and unavoidable suffering, and she instead cultivated a passive acceptance of both. And to me, that's just, you know, like Dave said, I mean, she's sitting on all that money and doing absolutely nothing with it. You know, to her...
She was absolutely an evil person. There's no question.
I agree. She is absolutely evil.
I mean, basically, and this probably goes from the article you were quoting, is that one of the things that has been said about her is there, you know, to her there was something beautiful in seeing the poor accept their lot to suffer, because she associated that with Christ's passion.
Yeah, and that's...
But the poor were not supposed to. The poor were not supposed to save humanity from original sin. So her logic is obviously fucking flawed.
Yeah, and yeah, it's just it's crazy. I mean, yeah. There's one story from one of the people she was supposedly going to take care of her. She goes, "One day I met a lady who is dying of cancer in the most terrible condition." This is actually a quote from her, from Mother Teresa. "And I told her, I say, you know, this terrible pain is only the kiss of Jesus, a sign that you have come so close to Jesus on the cross that he can kiss you." And she joined hands together and said, this is the woman she was talking to, "Mother Teresa, please tell Jesus to stop kissing me."
Yes, I remember that one. I remember that. Yeah.
I had never heard that before. That's awesome. It also showed just how twisted Mother Teresa was.
Yeah, how sick is that? Like, ugh.
And
oh, go ahead, Dave.
And the worst part about this, knowing this stuff, she's already been beatified by the Catholic Church.
Yep.
Yes, ahead.
She is being rewarded for being evil.
Ahead of schedule, even.
Oh,
yes.
yeah, well,
she cut in line.
Yeah.
Well, the reason they did that, there is actually, I'll say political for lack of a better word, is with the debacle surrounding the evil Pope, the one before Pope Francis, because they were trying to take some of the media attention off his quitting and the negativity surrounding him. They thought that by pushing the beatification of Mother Teresa would help the image of the church. that is the only reason she is being beatified so early.
Talk
'Cause
about
usually
shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah.
yeah. And just to throw this out there, there is actually a Facebook group, and they are called Stop the Missions of Charity. I follow them, but not super, super closely, but some of the stuff they put out about her and the missions of charity,
Mhm.
if you really want to get dirt and really see what these people are really like, that's the group to follow.
If you have a link to that group, can you put it in the chat room or
Yeah, let me find it.
post it on the video?
Let's see.
There's a comment from Chris in the chat room. He said, "Evil Pope." That narrows it down a bit.
Okay, the last one before the PR Pope that we have now.
Yeah, Benedict the 16th.
Yes, I couldn't think of his name for some reason. It just like went right out the window.
Oh,
Okay.
my favorite pope is Alexander the Sixth, but that's a whole other story.
Does it have something to do with sex?
Yes, actually it does.
Oh no.
That would be Mr. Rodrigo Borgia. Look him up. He is a very accomplished libertine. Yeah, but totally nothing to do with today. Well, at least not the altruism part of today's topic.
I just posted the link in the chat, and
Okay.
I'll throw it up.
I'm gonna visit it after we go off the air because I want to take a look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been trying to find that Indian author, and I'm not coming up with it right away, unfortunately. This was several months ago I read that, and I should have bookmarked it, and I didn't. So, if and when I find it, I will put it up where people can find it. Because it was even because he'd written a book of his own on her, and there was, I believe, the first chapter was available to read when I read, and that's where I read all about the ambulances and that stuff.
Yeah, it just the more I dug into stuff about Mother Teresa, because I always thought, growing up, and even 5-6 years ago, I was like, oh, Mother Teresa would have been a cool person to meet, and then I'm like, started finding all this stuff out, and I'm like, oh, scratch that idea.
Well, and when it came out at some point that she doubted the existence of God, I'm like, no, that bitch needs to keep believing. I don't want to hurt him, I can't. But that was posthumous anyway. But
yeah, well, I don't think that she dabbled in agnosticism. Mm-hmm. I think it was more apatheism and self-promotion than it was anything else.
Oh, she was selfish as hell.
Well, I said self-promotion, but yes, you're right, selfish too.
Oh yeah, like to a ridiculous degree. Like, I think the only reason she dedicated herself to Catholicism to that level was because she wanted the big ass reward in heaven.
Mm-hmm.
Indulgence. Or access to the coffers.
Yeah, that too. And I think you made the point last night, Dave, that all those people who died in horrible agony in her quote hospitals, and she got the best medical care that money could buy when she finally snuffed it.
Yeah.
And that's just disgusting. Yeah, for sure. Anyway, so yeah, Mother Teresa, nasty bitch. So Dave, sex.
And altruism.
Yes.
You had said something about, I want to say it was about 15 to 20 minutes ago, about getting something in return. Right?
Yes.
And how you want to make people feel good.
Mm-hmm.
I've had conversations in the past where people will say, the reason that they do certain things is because they want the other person to feel good. But the issue is, well, not the issue, but there what you're getting is, yes, the other person is feeling good, but you are getting the reward from that, and that reward is not only going to be that reward is not only intangible, it will also be very tangible.
Yes.
in the area of extended sexual activity. I'm talking. There was one conversation that I had recently with a girl who says that when she gives oral, what she'll always do is she'll look up with the puppy dog eyes as she's giving the oral, because she knows that the guy really gets off on that. And what winds up happening is the later sex winds up much better for her if she does that.
That makes sense. Yeah, so even though she knows it makes things better for him, that in turn makes it better for her.
Right. So it's it kind of goes in a cycle,
right?
I guess you might say. A cycle of prosocial sex.
Yeah, yeah, and that totally makes sense, and that can encompass so many aspects of your life outside of sex too. But it's definitely the most how do you put it? It's got the most motivation behind it, I guess.
The most motivation and one of the fastest rewards.
Yeah. Yes.
Because
that's true.
It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen in seconds, but it's definitely going to happen in minutes. But it won't take days or weeks or months to get that reward. At some point, it's going to happen in the next few minutes, or maybe the next hour, depending on how long you can go.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it's the kind of thing I don't think people think about too much. Well, you don't necessarily think about a lot when you're having sex. Maybe, I don't know.
Well, see, that's my problem. My brain runs all the time, and yeah. I'm thinking constantly. No, most of the time, I'm probably thinking about sex.
We never would have guessed that.
but even during sex, my brain is definitely not turned off.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying that the opposite to that is turned on. Never mind. I'm not going to go down that road. My brain doesn't switch off during sex.
Right. Well, that's probably a good thing. Because, and it's like automaton or something.
Yeah, define that. I keep hearing that term, and
like a wind-up toy. All action, no.
Yeah, I'm definitely not that.
No.
I'm definitely not that.
Automaton is it's an antique. Well, it's an old phrase, and it refers to very complex wind-up machinery that was common in the 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries. Where we would be like, woo, it's a tablet. They'd be like, woo, it's an automaton. Because it did kinds of funky, cool shit.
So it's basically a Rube Goldberg toy.
A what?
Oh, Rube Goldberg. An overly complex machine designed to perform just a very simple task.
Yes. So like a little mechanical bird that would chirp and spin around and flap its little wings, but it would take a crap ton of mechanics to get that to work.
At some point you got to say, I think I'm just going to go have a drink.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to create all that crap.
Well, though automatons were the plaything of the very rich. I mean, if you think about it, and a lot of them were gilded and used enamels and semi-precious or precious stones. So it's not the kind of thing that, you know, your average, you know, farmer would ever see in their lifetime.
Were
So
any of them used as sex toys?
Probably.
not that I know of directly, but I have seen photos of erotic ones.
Really?
Yes. Yes, and also you'll enjoy this. Another common thing in the 18th century, because of course snuff was a big thing back then, and they had all these little tiny boxes that you would put your snuff in and carry it in your pocket. Well, there was a range of snuff boxes that would have false lids. So the outer lid would have like pretty flowers or scroll work or some benign looking thing, but you flip that up and underneath would be a porn scene.
Nice.
Like hardcore porn scene. And somebody would have to sit there with a little paintbrush and paint all of that too. I've actually
Ingenuity knows no bounds.
exactly. I've got to handle some of those directly and such, and they're quite amazing little things. So totally not on topic at all, but I find them very fascinating.
I find anything about history fascinating.
Oh, me too. Aside from porn, history is my other porn. In fact,
I'm not going to go there.
I saw that meme on your timeline the other day about Henry VIII wants his milk back, and I actually looked at the best before date. I'm like, yeah, okay, they're within range. I think the year was 1536, and I'm like
1538.
1538. And you know what? The sad thing is, I also know that at that point he was courting Anne of Cleves, and Anne Boleyn was already dead, and so was Jane Seymour. And
Jane Seymour's not dead. She was on an episode of Forever just recently.
wrong Jane Seymour.
Are you sure?
Yes. Because that's the one wife he didn't kill.
I wonder why. Maybe she was looking up at him with those puppy dog eyes while she was blowing him.
That, and she actually gave him a boy. And then she died right after. Because, you know. In fact, was
it an intentional sacrifice?
No. It was down to shitty medical care, but she is the wife that he chose to be buried with because she is the one that provided him a son.
Shitty medical care. Was she at Missions of Charity?
Probably, yes. The Tudor period version.
You mean version?
Yeah.
Nice Freudian slip there.
Uh-huh. Oh, shit.
Well, switching gears.
Yes.
I was going to do the FFRF moment.
Absolutely.
I'm going to give a lot of credit here to Cash, our good friend, Skeptic Cash Feuerstein. It is because of them that I have my membership to FFRF.
Ditto.
And the recent newsprint from them I got in the mail just a couple of days ago, I think. Beth, if you haven't gotten yours, it'll be on its way.
Just came today.
Okay. Well, if you haven't had a chance to read it, under the column Overheard, there was a Overheard is a column where FFRF staffers will pull different quotes from religion-related newsworthy stories. And there was one in here from Matthew Trahella. He is the pastor of Mercy Seat Christian Church in West Allis, Wisconsin, urging Wisconsin county clerks to not issue marriage licenses to LGBT applicants.
Mm-hmm.
And what he said in his letter to the county clerks is, you have the opportunity to defy the federal judge and the lackey state officials that are doing Judge Barbara Crabb's bidding in order to defend what is right and good. Your interposition is needed and necessary. Now, there's several things wrong with his position. First of all, Judge Barbara Crabb didn't have a damn thing to do with any of that. Barbara Crabb is the federal judge who ruled on the parsonage exemption in IRS regulations, Section 107. But she has nothing to do with any same-sex marriage rulings.
Mm-hmm.
But what at least none that I am familiar with, and certainly none that have hit the news. But the other thing is, no, those county clerks do not have the opportunity to do that. They have to abide by the law, and the law says they have to issue the damn certificates. So it's just, it boggles my mind how these people can completely ignore every piece of information around them except what they want.
Actually, correction, Barbara Crabb did have a ruling on same-sex marriages.
Okay, I was unfamiliar with that.
Yeah, I thought so. I wasn't sure. I had to look it up real quick. But yeah, she did have a say in the same-sex ruling one of the same-sex ruling cases. Let's see if I can find which one.
I was unaware of that. But regardless of that, with the Supreme Court's decision, with the Supreme Court's decision not to hear appellate court, not to hear cases that appellate courts have already ruled on, it's ridiculous to even suggest defying the law anymore.
Well, do you remember the? Oh, go ahead.
Well, no, go ahead.
Do you remember the piece that I wrote up that you commented on about the Hobby Lobby ruling and the slippery slope?
I remember commenting on it. I remember reading it, but it has been some time back, and I'm not familiar with the specifics.
Okay, go ahead and finish yours, and I'll pull it up. I have to find the exact
Well, no,
wording.
because I was getting ready to talk about a completely different case, so...
Oh, well, basically what happened with Hobby Lobby, and this is why they pushed for it, it really had, and my contention is that the whole issue with Hobby Lobby had absolutely nothing to do with abortion whatsoever. But it comes down to is what Hobby Lobby ruling has allowed now, has opened the door for, is the right, specifically the religious right, and anybody who claims to be religious now can say they can contest any law that they don't like. And Hobby Lobby gives them that option now. And in fact, Barry Lynn, when he wrote an amicus brief to the courts concerning Hobby Lobby, and he was on point of inquiry, and that was one of his biggest fears, is basically now anybody that claims religion, even though it's defined as closely held religion, it's now going to open the door that any law y'all don't like, they'll be able to contest it. And not just corporations, not just businesses, but individual people.
Well, I saw something now about one of the Satanist groups trying to get exempted from abortion laws based on the Hobby Lobby ruling.
Yeah, what they're doing is it's actually if I remember correctly, it's the Satanic Temple, Lucian Grief's organization, and what they've done. Yes. Now, just to make a clarification, Lucian's group is more politically active as a group, where the Church of Satan believes that it's up to the individual members. Just some people get them confused as, well, why is Lucian's group doing this and Church of Satan is not? Church of Satan as a group does not, or attempts not to, get politically active. They leave it up to individual members, where Lucian, really one of the, I guess, to maybe simplify or summarize, he feels that that's part of what he should be doing. And what he's doing with the I believe it's in North Carolina, it might be South, is he's challenging the Hobby Lobby ruling, saying that not providing abortion goes against his religious beliefs. I'm not sure where that case stands offhand. I'd have to look it up, but
I think
I'm gonna have to. If that's in North Carolina, that's my state. I'm gonna have to take a look at that. One thing I want to point out here, the another of the major differences between the Church of Satan and the Satanic Temple is that the Church of Satan is primarily, as you said, it's a church, it's a worship organization, but what they adhere to is the whole concept of choice and knowledge.
right.
You know, okay. Damn it, I stepped outside and now there's a fucking plane. Sorry.
I was like, what in the world is that?
I live in Charlotte Douglas flight path.
Ah.
So the planes fly like literally right over my house. But the airport is still, I don't know, probably 5-6 miles away from me, but they're only at about 1,500 feet when they come over my house.
Oh, yeah.
And the reason you hear it so long is just because they're only doing about 120, 130 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was talking about the Church of Satan. It's primarily a worship organization recognizing choice, choice and knowledge as the ultimate goals, right?
Yes. Yeah.
As per the serpent. The Satanic Temple, on the other hand, and I've heard this before, but the Satanic Temple really doesn't have anything to do with Satan at all.
Well, neither one does, actually. They consider Satan as more of a Jungian avatar. It's the concept of free will. I wrote it up once before, and I'm trying to pull this off because my mind's on something else. Yeah, they don't believe in Satan as presented in Christianity.
Okay.
They both are atheistic organizations. They both base their beliefs off LaVeyan and the Satanic Bible. Okay. It's more of a philosophical view of Satan than it is an actual.
Okay, I was not aware of that, so thank you for that clarification. But what I was going to say about the Satanic Temple, yes, I have heard that Lucian is actually an atheist. He doesn't recognize Satan, but his mission is to try and upset the religious community so much that they stop trying to pass these stupid fucking laws.
Yes.
I like that approach.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, yeah.
Yeah, because it's the more desperate they get, the worse it's going to be for a while, I think.
Yeah. Well, and that's the sad thing about the Hobby Lobby ruling, because it's really opened up a Pandora's box, and it goes in something I harp on every time. It goes back to Alliance Defending Freedom. It goes back to the whole Dominionist idea, and this is what they want. They want it basically. I mean, most people don't realize that Steve Green, one of the co-owners of Hobby Lobby, he is pushing for Bible curriculum, and he's testing it in Oklahoma, although they didn't implement it yet this year. They were going to, and he basically, has said that, he wants students taught this. You know, our goal is that so that we can reintroduce this book, referring to the Bible, to this nation. This nation is in danger because of its ignorance of what God has taught. Someday, I would argue, it should be mandated.
Ugh.
That's the goal of Hobby Lobby, and that's why they pushed this issue. Abortion, you know, the contraception issue in abortion was just the means to implement this.
So they just saw that as a way to wiggle into the Supreme Court, basically.
Yes.
Nice. Man, I'm glad. Go ahead, Dave.
No, go ahead. You were going to say something.
I was just going to say that I'm glad you guys have them and we don't.
Yeah, but you had Sparrow.
Yes, you.
No. Sparrow was not staying. Sparrow flew back across the ocean and he's gone.
Oh, okay. Well, the other thing in the FFRF moment I wanted to mention, the front page article was about the Covington County Commission in Andalusia, Alabama. Recently,
Oh, yeah.
they voted unanimously to rescind a $30,000 appropriation from taxpayer funds to the Covington Baptist Association for a men's ministry,
Yep.
whose purpose is to get more men into church. Now, notice that I said rescind.
Mm-hmm.
They had already done it once.
Mm-hmm.
They had already afforded this grant once.
Mm-hmm.
So they were already in violation, and this was an attempt to renew that same grant.
Yep.
Well, the FFRF got involved and did their thing, and what ultimately happened was the Covington County Commission said, you know what, we can't risk this, and they recognized from what the FFRF told them that yes, this was a clear violation of the Establishment Clause.
Mm-hmm.
So, to their credit, they have eliminated that grant. So we got to give the FFRF some credit for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I kind of feel left out when you guys go on that. It's like, I don't have any FFRF. But that's probably because we don't really need it.
I don't know. From what I hear.
Well, it depends. It depends. I mean, they might need it out west more than they need it here, but because, well, I mean, we do have the whole Catholic school system, but that's a huge deal right now, and there is a big push to either get rid of them or force them to give up the public funding.
Yeah.
And I mean, the main reason they've gotten away with it for so long, and I mean, that's as long as I can remember, and there may have, I don't remember when it was instituted, but it was probably early 20th century. And the reason they get away with it is because taxpayers are given a choice of which school system you wish to support with your tax money. So they all were like, oh, well, it's okay because you have a choice. And like, no, it's not okay.
Yeah.
It's not.
It depends on what your Constitution says. Now, I'm not familiar with the Canadian Constitution.
We don't have any separation clause.
Okay, that would make sense given the fact that you're still traditionally a part of the British Commonwealth.
Yes.
And Great Britain certainly does not have separation of church and state.
They have a state religion, and that is thanks to my man Henry.
I'm so glad I'm British.
I'm only half British, but you know. But no, and that's when they get away with it. But I think I don't know if I mentioned on the last show or when, if it was on AOA. I think it was on AOA. But one of the people that I met at the non-conference, Andrea Houston, who's a Toronto journalist, she actually broke the story of the Catholic churches refusing to allow gay-straight alliance clubs. And there was no legal prohibition to that at the time, but once she broke the story about it happening, there is now a legal prohibition from them doing that. So it's a start. But one of my nieces is in a Catholic high school, and last year, she's 17 now, but last year, you know, she messaged me on Facebook all in a tizzy and very upset because in their religion class that they are forced to take, they were talking about, you know, homosexuals are you know, they're not following God and they're bad and all of that horse shit. And she knows gay kids. She has friends that are gay. And she was just mortified that they would teach this. And so, you know, it may be, well, they may say, well, that's how she's being raised and whatever, but no, she should not have to feel upset in her school classroom because people she cares about are being denigrated. And that's where the harm for this shit comes from. I don't care if it's only Catholics who are supporting it with their fucking taxes. It just shouldn't be in any funded school at all.
Yeah.
You know, it just... You know, she was really... In fact, she ended up getting detention over it because she mouthed off. She's got a little bit of a mouth on her. I don't know where she would get that from, but she mouthed off and got detention, and Auntie was very proud of her.
Is she mowed off while she's on the coach?
She's never been on my sofa.
I think that you would have a harder time holding that position legally. That this stuff should not be in taxpayer-funded schools, given the fact that you do not have a separation of church and state.
Yeah, that's
Now,
true.
Now, ethically speaking, you're right on the money. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
But in your case, being in Canada, legally, I'm not sure that the position is tenable.
Yeah, that makes sense. But it's interesting because there do pop up private religious-based schools around. I mean, I don't know of any personally, but we have a large enough Muslim population here. There's got to be Muslim schools here somewhere. I just don't know of any off the top of my head. But those are all privately funded, and it's a little bit different.
You know, there was an interesting kerfluffle in Britain recently with Islamic schools teaching pro-Islam instead of practical skills to their students.
Mm-hmm.
You might want to do a show on that sometime.
Yeah.
I think that would be very interesting.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's, I don't know. It just, that made me angry that, you know, she got upset by that, because that just shouldn't happen. And that's why I just, and it is something that's being talked about a lot right now, is should we still have them? If so, what degree? Should we change the funding system? And that, a lot of that came out of Andrea's article and getting people talking about what kind of bullshit actually goes on in those schools. Because, you know, the average non-Catholic would have no idea. They would just assume, well, there's Gay Straight Alliance clubs in all the other schools. Why wouldn't the Catholics have them? Because they're publicly funded. So.
Well, without that separation of church and state, though.
Yeah. I don't know. We have to do something about that, I guess.
Yeah, you need an amendment to your Constitution, damn it.
Well, yeah, good luck with that. First of all, we have to get rid of the fucking fundy we have in Prime Minister's office. That would be good. Although I have to...
I don't know much about him. I'm an American, so I'm insulated from the rest of the world.
I know. Hey, my ex-husband fucking lived here and he didn't even know anything, so. But he's not quite as scary as I thought he could have been, because he is a fundy. I believe, I have to look it up, and forgive me if I'm wrong, but I think he might even be Pentecostal.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. But to his credit, at least, he has left the two main hot button issues alone, which is abortion and gay marriage, because there was a big push when he got elected by the religious right that they wanted him to revisit those. I mean, those have been politically dead issues in Canada for a very long time now. And I mean, and I don't know, you guys may not even know this, we do not have an abortion law on the books.
I didn't know that at all.
Yeah, we do not have an abortion law. It is legal to terminate any fetus up until delivery. Now, that does not happen as a rule, and the Canadian Medical Association has self-regulated to that. They don't provide elective abortions past, I think it's 20 weeks or 24 weeks, something in that range. But it's been self-regulated. And we don't feel that we need at least the sane ones of us, we don't believe that we need a law because it's not been an issue. And abortions can be funded through the healthcare system as well. And so I've often kind of, I miss out on the whole abortion protester thing, because I would totally love to dive into a pile of those idiots, but we don't really get them. In town here, there is one of the hospitals is known to provide them. There are clinics, not here in my city, but in larger cities there are clinics, but for the most part, it is you can set it up through like your gynecologist or whatnot, or a specialist, and you would do it that way. So now the hospital here in town, they do get, I guess you can call them protesters. There's usually one or two poor straggly people with a sign, and they're not even worth my time because most people just kind of ignore them. It's kind of comical. In fact, I drove by there a week or so ago, and there was one little old lady standing in the drizzle with her sign about something to do with not killing babies, and I just like, wow, that's, you're gonna catch pneumonia out here, lady. Like, yeah. So we have no abortion law whatsoever. And it is actually legal to terminate any pregnancy prior to birth.
That's pretty amazing.
I thought so.
Yeah.
In North Carolina, we do have a law on the books that limits the time window for abortions and cuts it off at 20 weeks.
Right.
Yeah.
That tends to be the standard time frame, because that is, now if memory serves, and I haven't debated this in several years, but I believe that is the time frame for the development of the cerebral cortex, which is where sentience and awareness and that sort of thing comes from, and that's generally accepted to be the cutoff for elective.
See, I went looking for that recently.
Okay.
And couldn't find it because, to me it would seem, now I'm firmly pro-choice, but I would, from my own moral perspective, my thing would be abortion is fine up until the growing child can sense pain.
And there's some debate on that. I haven't been in the debate arena with that for a while now, but it was something I did spend a lot of time debating, and there was a lot of disagreement about when that occurs. And I think that that's kind of where the shift towards the cerebral cortex went, because that's sort of, well, then there's consciousness and sentience, and that kind of brings things to a new level. I'd have to go back and do some. We should do a show about that at some point, maybe. But I have to go back and read what the current thought research is on that.
Well, I think, like, Dave, you were talking about 24 weeks, and right now, in fact, it just happened last week, I believe, or this past week, with Ohio passing the fetal heartbeat bill, which now pushes abortions back to 6 weeks.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Which
See, that is ridiculous.
Yeah, and the reason being why it's, quote, ridiculous is that most women that I know anyways don't know that they're pregnant until they've missed their second period, which is 8 weeks.
Right.
And that's basically how they are bypassing Roe v. Wade by making it virtually, with the fetal heartbeat bill, if it stands up in court, they've now virtually made abortions illegal.
I don't understand that whole heartbeat thing, because you can make a heartbeat in a jar, and that is not anything.
Yeah, well, and that's why I hope, but with the Supreme Court the way it is right now, I don't know if it's going to stand constitutional mustered. Just for that simple fact that the heart beating really doesn't mean anything, because you can remove the heart from the body and it will still beat.
Yeah, you plug it in and
Yeah.
you know, provide blood flow or whatever, it'll do its thing.
Yeah.
It does.
I mean, I remember back in biology class back in high school, we used to, when we dissected frogs, we used to scramble the brains of the frogs to keep their heart beating.
Oh, jeez.
I don't remember why. I don't remember why. What we were trying. I think probably circulation. I don't remember.
Wait a minute. Wait. Okay. You've got to repeat that, because I'm not sure what I just heard.
Yeah.
When I was in high school, now remember, we're going back over 30 years. Or was it in college? I can't remember which, but that's only 4 years difference. We basically, there's a method to keep the heart beating. What you did is basically you inserted a not a stick with a pin on it, and through the base of the skull, and you would scramble the frog's brain. And basically, what it did is it killed the frog, but the heart was still beating. And I think, if I remember correctly, it was to study the circulation system of the frog and how the heart worked. And yeah, that pretty much turned me off of stuff like that. I was like, yeah, I got to college and we had to do training rats. And basically we had to sedate our poor rat, not kill it, but we had to sedate him. And I couldn't even put the needle in because I'm thinking back to this poor frog. And and the sad thing is, I was vegan at the time.
Oh, jeez. You know how I got through high school science class where we had dissections? I was partnered with someone who was a little more challenged in the report side of things, so I made her a deal. I was not touching anything, and I will write everything, and you do all the gory shit. And so I really didn't learn anything because I just kind of, there was no way. I mean, I remember we had a fish, and it was like, well, you just stick the scissors up its ass and cut it open, and no, it wasn't happening.
Yeah, that experience pretty much ended my interest in the biological sciences, other than
Yes.
book learning, because I wasn't vegan for ethical or moral reasons. I was vegan because I just didn't like meat, and plus I was an athlete, and I needed to keep my body. I played hockey, so I had to keep my body weight, But yeah, that pretty much I hit that class. It was AP biology, and I was like, oh hell no. So I went the way of chemistry, chemistry and physics.
Well, see, I only had to have one science credit in high school, so I got through that shit, and I never looked at it again.
Yeah. But yeah, it's the Ohio bill is HB 248. It's called the heartbeat bill, and
Okay.
basically what it's doing, it's pushing it down to 6 weeks, which basically will outlaw abortion. And as far as I know, there are no exceptions whatsoever.
That's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. But it just goes to the whole cliche, which is absolutely true. They don't give a shit about that fetus once it gets outside of the womb.
Yeah. Yeah, the only...
Yeah. I mean, and I just posted a meme about that the other day, actually. It was, you know, they had the pregnant woman and the people are all, ooh, save your baby. And then the next one was the same woman that was holding her baby, and they're like, you mooch and, you know, get a job and, you know, you're sucking society. And it's like, yeah. I spent a couple of years debating abortion online, and I met one person in all that time who actually I could respect because they actually did adopt the child that they saved. That I can respect that. But these people that are like, oh, save your baby, it's like, are you going to feed it? Are you going to take care of it for the next 20 years? Are you going to send it to college? Like, shut the fuck up and mind your own goddamn business. And that's why I wish we had actually, well, no, I don't really wish we had protesters here, but if we did, I would enjoy it.
Well, I don't like protesters either. I think they're worse than people.
Oh, they're yeah. Like I say, I've never seen them in any force here, but from what I've seen on TV and stuff, it's ridiculous. I would be more than happy to volunteer as like a escort for people trying to get into Planned Parenthood or something if we had that around here. Because I've even heard stories, because Planned Parenthood provides all kinds of services, and I've heard stories of them, you know, some poor woman's going in for a pap smear, and they're like, don't kill your baby, and like, come on, you idiots. Anyway. So...
I'm sorry, no, I was just clearing my throat. I apologize.
It's okay. But I heard something about your batteries getting low, Dave.
Yes, that is correct. I typically do these while I'm on my cell phone, and I am getting downwards to about 4% now, so I'm going to have to wrap it up for the evening. But if you folks want to continue, please do so.
Is there anything that you want to say or discuss before you lose your battery?
I don't have anything in particular.
Okay. Well, I did go back and I found that Idiot Muslims thread, and the term that I was looking for is zakat. So that...
I had never heard of that, so thank you for that.
No problem. And you can thank Paul for that, too. Hi, Paul. It's the admonition to the adherent Muslim that they must give to the poor. So it's, and this guy's English is kind of shitty, but it says, Zakat is charity for poor people by rich Muslims to be with us in society, is what he said. And his beef was that American rich people don't help the homeless and such, which you guys have challenges, but he was kind of over the top. Basically, all banks steal money from poor people, and everybody's getting raped all the time, and yeah. So If anybody wants some mild entertainment, that is available on my timeline.
I'm gonna have to go and look at that later.
Yeah, I'll fire you the link because it's buried about 3 days back or so. But
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Because it gets, you probably won't get through the whole thing because there's like 200 comments and he is seriously horribly repetitive and never listened to anything I said. I think I had to tell him about 4 times that I wasn't an American before he shut up about America. And the best part was when he's Algerian, and the best part was when he said that I really ought to come visit Algeria because I would appreciate their society and would I like his phone number so I could go visit Algeria.
Well, what? He said what?
He offered me his phone number so that I could come visit Algeria and see a really good society.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and I was talking to a couple of people, and I'm thinking, yeah, he just wants me to go there so he can slap a burqa on my ass and be like, ooh, look what I got. Ain't happening, buddy. I don't even know much about Algeria, to be that honest. It's like in Africa somewhere, isn't it?
Yes, it is, and they have oil.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
So as a Westerner, that is probably the only thing that you should be concerned with, you know, that they have oil.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's all we want from that region.
Yeah. Oh, Beth, are you having trouble being heard? Or saying stuff? Oh, yeah, she's saying stuff and we can't hear her. I don't know. 1 minute, she said. I think she's going to go out and come back. So,
that happens to me quite a bit too.
Yeah.
But it is what it is.
It is, but she'll be back in a minute. And it's getting close to time to wrap up anyway. But yeah, crazy people on my timeline lately. And that's not the first one. I had a guy from Nigeria about 2 or 3 weeks ago that was trying desperately for me to come to Nigeria, but he didn't want to show me his society. He wanted to show me something else.
His vagina.
No, well, penis, I believe.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now. No,
I'm sitting there gabbing away, and I'm like, either they're really good at ignoring me, or my sound ain't working.
No, you went out. I'm sorry. Please, what was it you had to add?
I don't remember now.
No, Nigerian guy thought that I would be completely enticed to go to Nigeria and have sex with him, even after I told him that batteries are a hell of a lot cheaper than plane tickets to Nigeria. You're not that hot.
I remember now. With the zakat? Is that what you called it?
Yes, I did find zakat.
Is that something they actually do practice, or is that just one of those tenets of their faith that they cherry pick?
I believe that's a cherry-picking situation, depending on the where you are and what degree of adherence you have. So
okay.
he made it sound like, you know, no one would ever be good to anyone if you didn't have Islam to tell you about zakat and other tenets. Like, you know, they're so nice to women, aren't they?
Oh, yeah. What was it you said? Throw a burqa on you?
Yeah, that's what I figured he wanted for me to go there, was to go to there and he could capture me in a burqa and all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I saw Chris's thing there, Matt Dillahunty. Yeah, hi, Chris. I did see that debate with Matt Dillahunty, and sorry, we're back to abortion for a second. Matt Dillahunty, I actually really liked his argument. It had absolutely nothing to do with personhood and went strictly on use of bodily resources. And the idea being that even as a parent of a living child, you are never compelled legally to give up your own bodily resources for that child. And yeah, I think that would be a good discussion for another time for sure.
Well, just quick comment. I mean, most people don't realize that I was adopted,
Mhm.
and back in the '60s, you know, abortion was pretty much back alley. Now,
Mhm.
my biological mother was only 15 when she had me.
Right.
Now, you know, thankfully back then our adoption system, I would say, was much better than it is now.
Right.
Because I know of kids that have been in the system since they were babies, and they're now going to, and they're not even in foster care, which is even worse.
Mhm.
They will be aging out because they'll be turning 18. So,
Yeah.
I mean, do I wish that my mother aborted me? No. You know, am I
Right,
grateful that I was.
but if she had aborted you, you wouldn't know that she had aborted you.
Right,
Yeah.
and that's where I was going with it, because so I have had people use that argument. Well,
Yep.
I'm like, use that argument. Well, you know, your mom didn't abort you, and I said, well, if she did, I wouldn't have known about it anyways.
And I've actually taken that argument a step further because I've had that thrown at me a bazillion times too. Well, you didn't get aborted. I'm like, yeah, you know what? I should have been. My parents had no business getting married or having me
Mm-hmm.
or any of that shit. It should not have happened. And the only
Yeah,
reason that it did is because there was no legal abortion at that time. And I have no problem with that. You know,
yeah,
I like that I'm here, and that's awesome, and I don't wish that I wasn't here, but they had no business having a child or doing what they did.
yeah.
And I would have no, and my favorite quip is, well, you know, if they had aborted me, you wouldn't have to be sitting here having this discussion with me right now, would you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like
Let me interrupt here. I've just hit 2% on the battery, so if I don't go ahead and gracefully bow out now, I'm going to suddenly vanish with no explanation.
All right.
I'm going to take my leave. Deborah, thank you so much for having me on the show. Beth, it's been great
Yes.
to talk to you again.
Yep, as
Thank you
usual.
for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Dave.
Thank you. Good night.
Okay. Good night.
Um, we have, I'll say, a pregnancy problem here in our town. We have a lot of kids under the age of 17 having children.
Oh dear.
I think it was last year or the year before, we had a 14-year-old.
Oh jeez.
Now, in her defense, thankfully her family is supporting her in a sense that they're, you know, what, so she can continue with school. Now she she has to work. They're financially supporting her to a degree, but they've also, you know, once she turns 16, she will have to get a job.
Right.
Even if it's only a couple hours a week. Now I have a couple other young friends who are also with children or are going to have one probably in the next day or two.
Yep.
Again, they have parental support, but another one of my friends, actually a sister to the one that's expecting in a couple days, because she's in her early 20s, her parents would support her if she asked, but there would be conditions. She does not have that support, and it's tough because I know that the option of abortion did not even cross her mind. And I
Yeah.
give her credit for that, for the
Mhm.
simple fact that, but I know that she's never going to be able to, one, get out of this town, and two, go on to school if she wants to. People just don't realize that by pushing these fetal heartbeat bills, by trying to delegitimize abortion, do I think it should be used as birth control? No. But it has to be an option.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. Because they're just going to perpetuate. They wonder why people end up, on,
Food stamps.
food stamps and having, issues with getting proper jobs or education. And it's part of the problem is that society keeps trying to push people into having children when they shouldn't be. And one of the when I used to debate abortion all the time, one of the people that was in the group with me was a lady who was actually a pediatric neurologist. And she was, of course, very pro-choice. And her story, she, when she was a medical student, she was married. So she has never had sex with anyone other than her husband.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, she was married as in medical school. And she was responsible. She was on birth control, but didn't know that antibiotics cancel birth
Yes,
control.
they do.
And in fact, at the time that she got pregnant, no one knew that. It was an unknown problem. So she got pregnant, and it would have destroyed her medical career. So she had an abortion.
Yeah.
And within, I think, a year or two later, because they still didn't know about the antibiotics, it happened again. And she did it again. And she had, at that point, had 3 children because they had been married and she'd been a practicing doctor for several years. And that was the right time for her to have her children. And you know, they used to try and guilt trip her in the group, all of the loving Christians, because they, oh, you did it twice. Oh my God. Well, no, she was not promiscuous. She was not irresponsible. She did everything right, and shit happened. And but think of the impact, though. If someone had guilted her into having that first child, and she dropped out of med school and never became the neurologist, how many hundreds of people would have been negatively impacted by her not being that doctor?
Well, and that actually ties into, you know, our initial talk about being altruistic, in my opinion, because by the choices she made, she, there was a benefit for her. She was able to finish medical school and go on and start her practice, but in some instances, her ability to do that is our reward.
Absolutely.
I mean, there was a video clip, I'll say about 6-7 months ago, and it was a husband and a wife. They were going into, I don't know if it was specifically a Planned Parenthood clinic or not, but it was an abortion clinic. And of course, the wife went in very quickly, and the husband, they were kind of separated by 3-4 feet, and the husband was behind her because he had to park the car, and he was approached in the beginning, but he ignored and went in, and I think it was after when he came back out, he went up to the protesters and got in their face, because hers was not a wanted abortion, hers was a needed abortion. And I'll have to see if I can find that link again, but it was pretty devastating, because he goes, my wife and I just had to end a pregnancy that we very much wanted, because if I remember correctly, it was a fetal death. And that's the thing, people don't take that into consideration when they they like you said, they have that one thing in mind. Oh, we're all for the baby, but as soon as that baby is born,
they're at the door. They're running away. One of my favorite, I actually made a shirt of this, and it has a picture of a little cartoon fetus, and it's done up in rainbow, and it says, "May the embryo you save be gay and proud."
I'm sorry, I was reading a comment in chat. What did you say?
Sorry. I have a shirt that has a little picture of a rainbow embryo, and it says, "May the embryo you save be gay and proud."
Oh, there you go.
That was one of my favorites.
well, okay, and that I'm gonna pull this from memory, but they're so against LGBT saying that we're an abomination, we're sinful. Some going so far as to saying that we need to be killed, a la
Mhm.
Gordon Killingenschmidt.
Yes.
Okay, so if they delegalize abortion, does that mean they're going to support LGBT?
Mm.
Or,
Yeah.
okay, or let's say they can do a genetic test, which they are working on, or trying to determine if 100% shadow of a
Yeah.
doubt that homosexuality is genetic.
Yeah.
Okay, you have the genetic test, and you're a nice little Bible thumper who
Mhm.
believes that homosexuality is a sin and an abomination.
Yeah.
So you have this genetic test, and you find out your fetus is gay.
Then all of a sudden you want to bet they might make allowances.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was, I'll have to, that's another one I'll have to pull up. That was from a couple years ago. Oops,
Yeah.
cat. I was going to put my leg up and she's sitting on my chair.
Well, it's getting about time to wrap things up.
Sounds like a
So,
plan.
yeah. So, thanks to Dave again, who's
Yes.
gone off to the ether. Thanks to everybody who's watching or will be watching. We appreciate it. We're glad to have you. Thanks to everybody who popped into the chat room. Glad to see you there too. Yes, hi Jonathan and Christopher. And no, it is a sofa. Yes. Yes. Yeah, so we will see you next week, of course. And, of course, special thanks to Cash, who makes it all possible and who inspires everybody and who we can't wait. And if you haven't noticed on the Facebook realms, Atheists on Air will be moving now to Sunday nights. Because Professor Stephen got a promotion. Congratulations, Professor Stephen. Somebody asked if that meant more or less urine handling. We have yet to find out, but we'll see. So, yeah, AOA will now be on Sunday nights at 7 p.m., the second Sunday of the month. So, yeah. So, everybody, thanks again for watching, and we will see you next week. Good night.
Peace out.